Hey, y'all. Okay, so we're back. Jeremy's here. Hey, Jeremy.
Hi.
Okay, all right. I was expecting a little more energy. I wanted you to use that up.
You know what? Because I wasn't ready. Because you were like, I'm about to hit record, and then I thought you hit record, but then you hadn't hit record, and then I started thinking about you need a recording sound. That's what I was thinking the whole time.
Oh, that'd be cute.
Yep. I knew you'd like it.
Yeah, I like that.
Little sign. It's like when you're recording.
Man, look at you. See, this is why you need creative people in your life.
I hope you find one.
Because they give you ideas. Because I never would have thought of that. Believe it or not.
It'd be fun.
Or at least a light. Yeah, just some sort. Yeah, that'd be cute. I like that. All right. We're back for part 2. Hope you enjoyed part 1. If you were smart, you waited. Because, not that you had to wait long. I'm going to do a brief introduction into this new episode. The cocktail stays the same, which is the Hemingway daiquiri. It's literally Gotham City outside, but it's fine. I sometimes enjoy hearing that background noise.
I was just thinking that. I was actually thinking like, it doesn't pick it up at all.
It does a little bit, but it's not aggressive. Yeah, because in the summer when I'm like recording, you could just hear like all the sirens. And it's like, whatever. That's city life. Always an emergency.
It could be a nice background.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, introduction. Before we get into this, I need to say something clearly, okay? Because I listened to the last episode. I liked the last episode. I did a lot of good things in that episode. Toot toot.
My boss talks like that. He's like, that was great, but I just
okay.
You have to believe in yourself.
Huh?
You have to believe in yourself.
You have to, because who will? Like who will? So this episode deals with power. I want to say that this episode is about the way systems overlap, and most of what you're about to hear comes from Webb's, and I mean Whitney Webb, her piecing together these patterns across all these decades. And I like I said, I definitely tried to keep it kind of familiar. Some names you recognize, some you don't. Some incidences you recognize, some you don't. And I feel like you will recognize more listening to this one than the last one, because I know it's a lot. I can't get over how much of a lot it is. Just her investigative journalism, her piecing together all of these different characters. I can't imagine it. And I watched that podcast again of her talking about like how she just was trying to like keep everything in order. Because even the podcaster was like, there's so many people. And believe it or not, it's like I didn't even scratch the surface of how many people she names throughout this book. So I want to say that for the people who are truly interested in this, don't just use my episode as like your only opportunity to learn about her work. You should definitely listen to it. If you can't read it, Audible, it's fine. It's good Audible.
I love Audible.
Yeah, look, back in the day we used to do books on tape.
I keep losing credits though.
Yeah.
Which I need to work on.
But with all that said, some of this also remains contested. I'm not here to present rumors as fact, but sometimes you know it's gonna be bullshit when somebody says but and then pause. No, but I'm here to examine the patterns, and I think that's where we are in politics in general. Is like we don't know the answers to everything, but we're just trying to piece together like 1, what is happening, and 2, how the fuck did we get here, and 3, I'm one of those people that as soon as I kind of have an idea of what's going on, I feel more relieved with the idea that there may be something we could do about it. It's kind of like going to the doctor and being finally diagnosed with something you had a problem with for a long time. And then you're like, oh, okay, now that we put a name to it, okay, I know how to fix that.
Then you
now.
Understand you can start making progress.
Yeah. And not that, I'm like, oh, I'm going to run for office. Not that I'm going to do that.
5 years later.
Okay. But I will say, yeah, knowing helps me. So the patterns, because I will say this too, because when you see the same names over and over and you see the same banks and the same fixers and the same methods that just span across multiple scandals, you start to realize, okay, I'm not a loser or a flaming piece of shit. This is definitely stacked against us. We're not supposed to win for real in this. So it kind of makes me feel better.
I'm a little scared.
Huh?
I'm a little scared. You
it's
banks
not. I mean, I just think, it's a lot. So some of these stories are messy, and it's the structure of the thing. And some of them live in that like gray space where the official record ends and then the investigative threads begin, which to me, it's intentionally that way because it convolutes the story so you won't be able to tell your ass from your elbow. It's like, I mean, you can have that feeling that something's going on, but can you prove it though? And I think it's supposed to be convoluted, just like we're supposed to be having this experience where we're just being hit with just like nonstop drama just to make us tired to the point where we're like, okay, fine. You can be king.
King.
I mean, that's clearly the goal.
Yeah.
So the stories, not being confirmed kind of help us brush it aside as conspiracy. When you start shredding documents and you start getting rid of stuff and you start redacting stuff, this is why these people get away with this type of shit. Yeah. So I'll state the obvious. I was not there. Whitney Webb was not there. None of us were there. But you can believe this or not. That's my point. I'm just the messenger. So I just wanted to say that. Not that I got any weird comments. I didn't. I just felt like you
wouldn't know because you said that.
Well, after when I sometimes do political stuff, I know that I could just like take it so personal that I inject a lot of my personal opinion. So I just wanted to preface this episode by saying that I'm giving you information. You listen here for my opinion and for the stupid shit that I got to say. And you grown. You just gonna have to take it or research it. I don't know, So
also for legal purposes, for entertainment purposes.
Okay. Allegedly. From the very beginning.
Covered.
Allegedly. All right. Now, in that last episode, though, Jeremy mentioned the Joker. And it reminded me that I wanted to actually go to that quote and think about it. And this is what the Joker said. And I hope this is the quote you were referring to. Because he said a lot of cool things in that movie.
He did say a lot.
But Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight, he said, the mob has plans. The cops have plans. Gordon's got plans. They're schemers trying to control their little worlds. And then he says, I'm not a schemer. I try to show the schemers how pathetic their attempts to control things really are. I just did what I do best. I took your little plan and I turned it on itself. Look what I did to the city with a few drums of gas and a couple of bullets. Then he says, excuse me. You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. He says, if tomorrow I told the press that like a gangbanger will get shot or a truckload of soldiers will be blown up, nobody panics because it's all part of the plan. But when I say that one little old mayor will die, well, then everyone loses their minds. Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's fair. Oh.
What a time.
Man. I just want to say for the record too, this Jeremy was the resident Batman obsessed psychopath.
Okay, well,
yeah, we gonna keep it above.
It's a little strong, but I was a fan.
It was bad. We both had tattoos. You got rid of yours, but we had tattoos.
Oh, that hurts. I didn't get rid of it. It changed a little bit. There's still a part of it.
Okay.
And then I also still have the
ha-has. Yeah.
So, I kind of forgot I have that tattoo. I guess I am. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good. It was a good time.
It was a beautiful time, and the marketing and going to all those events.
Yeah,
and like following the Joker around.
100%.
Different time in marketing. Anyway, but
100%.
Yeah, that is the quote.
And I'm not mad at that experience of like geekism. That was a good time. But excuse me, I'm sorry. I wanted to go back to that quote because. Yeah, I was like, I'm 99.9% sure this was a quote that he was talking about because it is. It's kind of like Your plans are cute.
I'm surprised I didn't like go into it. Like, oh,
No,
look, I changed.
no.
I just mentioned the quote. And
Yeah,
moved
you
on.
did. You were like, oh, you sound like the Joker. And I was like, oh, I'm going to put that in the next episode.
Well, there's a time I would have then went into some kind of monologue.
It would have been it would have been like, hear ye, hear ye. You're like, okay, can I finish this episode? So I wanted to get that out and let that marinate. Now, a quick recap. And this is for Jeremy and this is for you. The Bronfman family, we talked about, built a legitimate liquor dynasty, i.e. Crown Royal, Seagrams, on the back of illegal Prohibition era bootlegging. And then they weren't just selling the booze. They were building a bridge between the criminal underworld with like Meyer Lansky and Lucky Luciano and the political elite like Winston Churchill. Okay, you remember that. Then the New York Syndicate would eventually take over. They would also eventually take over the Democratic Party through the unions and then eventually conquer the Republicans. And we'll talk about how bipartisan Blackmail actually is in this episode. But just to close the loop on some figures, Lansky died by 1983 of lung cancer. Bronfman died in 1971, but his son Edgar would pick up where he left off. And so Edgar Sr. was like this primary engine for another type of transition. So while his father was dealing with mobsters and like back alleys, Edgar was dealing with presidents in the Oval Office. So the game is changing a little bit. And one family I didn't mention in part one was the Roth's children. I call them Roth's children because Rothschilds just sound stupid.
I get it. That's funny.
Yeah, the Roth's children.
I
didn't want to mention these people because they have kind of been mythologized. Like ChatGPT wasn't wrong, but
I'm concerned when you brought up their name. I almost left.
Now, they have been for centuries, and they have been looked at as like this evil puppet master type family. I don't know these people. I mean, to me, they like Jessica Fletcher. Like, you always at the scene of the crime, though. Like, that's the bigger issue. Like, why are you always at the scene of the crime?
I think this is a good time to say that I was invited to this podcast.
Yeah, he was. Jeremy was
invited. I
invited.
didn't write this podcast.
But what I read is that their legacy money made a lot of things possible. Through different family members, quote unquote, philanthropic enterprises, from Baron Edmund de Rothschild, who's the man who originally bought up the Palestinian land for Israel, and to Sir Evelyn de Rothschild and his wife, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, who were super peers in the mega group in the 90s, which we'll talk about that as well. We won't talk about them. We're just talking about that because I'm not getting into the Rothschilds, the Roth's children.
Great.
I'm thinking I may do another episode on them, though. You're like, not so great.
I would tread lightly. I'm kidding. I don't know.
These people don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many videos on these people making gross theories about their family. Like, they are so filthy, stanky rich. If they had the ability to murder everybody to talk to about them, there would be no people.
No, you do it strategically, not everybody.
Okay.
There's a couple missing TikTokers. I know you've
seen
them.
Yeah, that's facts. No, that's not.
Like,
that's
they got
facts.
a little too close.
Yeah, but but not for the Rothschilds. For like people who are a little closer to God than God, you know?
Well, we're not done with the episode, are we?
All right. So maybe one day I'll do an episode on them. But needless to say, a lot of what I'm telling you about the Rothschilds, it's alleged. We'll keep it there to keep Jeremy safe.
For everyone's sake.
As the mob moved above board, they realized that the money was good, but blackmail was better. Okay. Roy Cohn and Louis Rosenstiel, they perfected the art of the honeypots and bugged rooms, which we talked about. Rosenstiel died in 1976. After he died, the mega group figures like Les Wexner, who we'll talk about, and the Bronfmans, who were Rosenstiel's direct competitors and his peers, began to take a dominant role in organizing the network's financial power. So the financial power just keeps getting passed on. Now, the two men meant to protect the U.S. at the time were J. Edgar Hoover, and he was neutralized because of the photos of him in women's panties. And then Allen Dulles of the CIA, he would also use his own dirty tricks to maintain his power. Okay. Now, Hoover leaves the chat in 1972. He dies of a heart attack. And within hours of his death, his long-term secretary, Helen Gandy, began shredding a lot of stuff. Like, destroy it. When I die, hit the button type shit. The collapse of Intrabank, I mentioned in the first episode in 1966, proved that the banks weren't just money. They were moving black funds and harvesting secrets. And who was the board of that bank? Adnan Khashoggi, who we'll talk about in this part as well. Now, when that bank was starved out of existence, the infrastructure of the blackmail moved into private, unaccountable hands like this man named Edmund Safra. So, needless to say, the favored banks started to evolve. They figured out new ways to blackmail people. Now, we're going to talk about Ed Safra. Now, Ed Safra, he may have picked up the baton from this man named Tibor Rosenbaum, who was another pioneer in creating this financial system that uses black money for intelligence agencies and organized crime. That's always the link, because specifically with Meyer Lansky, because he's just like that. And that was in the 1950s and 60s. But then there came the International Credit Bank, and that bank moved vast sums of money for the Mossad, Israeli intelligence, and the Israeli minister, Jerry shaking his head. He's like, oh my God, let's not talk about them. And the Israeli Ministry of Defense, as much as reportedly 90% of Israel's external defense budget flowed through that bank. Okay. I'm not going to get into that deeply into Zionism, because I already know that Jeremy's terrified.
I mean, I think you're
He's like, are we going to get canceled?
Think.
It's like, I can't be canceled if I never started.
I mean,
yeah, that's probably
I don't think that's how the internet works.
Yeah, probably not. But the ICB, they laundered skimmed cash at these Las Vegas and Caribbean casinos, which we also talk about, which were heavily criminal. And to Whitney Webb, Rosenbaum was kind of like the end of an era. So then as we began to get into the 70s, the Favor Bank, this whole complex system of like political and legal quid pro quo, transitioned from behind the scenes threats to this sophisticated weaponization of the media. That was pushed by J. Edgar Hoover and Roy Cohn to force people in power, but into submission. So like, if you got some power, I'm gonna use these pictures I got of you like bent over at the hotel on a Friday night. So about 1970s, Cohn was the most powerful mafia lawyer in New York. Cohn helped facilitate the control over the concrete industry in New York, which was a huge mob-controlled industry. Mob controlled the unions. They controlled the construction contracts. And this is how he helped a young Donald Trump build Trump Tower. Because he got the concrete delivered, even though they were in the middle of a citywide strike. Just pulled some strings. Now, Roy Cohn, he mentored Donald Trump, and he introduced him to all of the hip and the famous and all of these people that Donald Trump would have eventually needed, because it was his idea to use your social status as a weapon. Enter Studio 54, right? We all know Studio 54. Studio 54 was a flashy front at the end of the day. Roy Cohn was, in fact, a fixer. And he was a fixer for the owners of Studio 54. And Cohn was effectively the king of the club at this point. He has his own table. He has total control over who gets to enter the VIP areas. That's his thing. Studio 54 provided this constant stream of very popular people and heavy hitters like judges, elected officials, wealthy businessmen who were engaging in illicit drug use and sexual activities in the club's private rooms. Like, I guess there was like these infamous balcony and basement that people used to do things in. So Cohn utilized the environment to gather the information. And Webb notes that he used the club to identify the vulnerabilities of very powerful people. Then eventually the IRS was like, hey, what's going on with this club? What's happening? Not so much. I mean, the federal agents got involved too because there was a lot of drug distributed and clearly prostitution and all types of stuff going on there now. And when they raided the club, they found that there was $600,000 hidden in the ceiling and a stash of cocaine. And one of... Yes. And
I was more surprised it was in the ceiling. But
right. I'm like, I would put in a disco ball or something, but hey.
I mean, I guess that's smart. I don't know.
I mean.
For the 70s. It's the 70s.
I feel like a ceiling is a dead giveaway. I feel like they're going to check the ceiling. Like, I would have just put it somewhere altogether.
I guess
different.
if it's like a regular drop down scene, you just have to poke your hand up.
Maybe I'm thinking of like cheap hallway ceiling. It was probably like a real ceiling.
I would think it's Studio 54. I guess we can look it up.
Yeah, we could have. I imagine like if it was like a Chicago 10 ceiling, I probably would hide it up there.
Yeah.
Depending on whether or not it's easy to dismantle.
Or someone else. Or somewhere else.
Yeah. Or that. Like, why did you have to hide it in the club? That's kind of crazy. That's something a crackhead would do, which is probably what they were probably high when they did it.
They're probably arrogant.
That part too. Well, and here's how arrogant they were.
They didn't think
because one of the owners famously bragged about how the money that they made, how much money that they made, and how basically the IRS would like never know about it. And the IRS was like, bet.
Yeah.
Say less. We on our way.
The government doesn't love to be challenged.
Right. And that triggered the investigation. Roy Cohn defended the owners, of course. He attempted to blackmail the investigators, of course. And then he used his political ties with the Reagan-Bush campaign, specifically Bill Casey, who we talked about in part 1, who is the head of the CIA, to try to protect his clients. So these two owners eventually went to prison, but the records that they kept, which reportedly were lists and of like famous guests and what their preferences were, disappeared. Or it's believed that it was handled by Cohn's circle. Corruption. So,
a list of preferences.
Yeah. So the ICB failed. The bank failed in 1974, that black money bank. The secret networks needed a new and secure way to move money. And so the system was originally like Cohn, right? Cohn, he learned his whole method from this guy named Generoso Pope Sr. Sounds like a mobster because he is, who taught him how to use city contracts and the media to influence judges, you know, the appointment of judges, and even to do things so small as to fix issues with parking tickets. So if he didn't want to pay a parking ticket, he would just like, yeah, remember all them naked pictures? I got a US Studio 54. I suggest you make these tickets go away.
I mean, that's power.
It is power. And the Favor Bank operated on the principle that many powerful figures were vulnerable to blackmail. I don't know if you remember in part 1, we talked about the Blue Suite when they were in the Park Hyatt and J. Edgar Hoover was dressed as Mary.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, how does one forget? But that allowed those in control to have the information to trade silence for political favor. So Roy Cohn would continue his shenanigans until he was finally disbarred. They were like, you cannot be an attorney anymore. This is too much. Now the specific scandal that finally took his law license involved Louis Rosenstiel, who was the competitor with the crappy booze in part 1. Cohn was accused of going to Rosenstiel's hospital bed while he was dying and mentally incapacitated and tried to force his hand to sign an amendment to his will, writing Cohn as co-executor of his $75 million estate.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a movie. Honestly.
It's totally a movie.
Yeah.
So while Cohn publicly insisted that he was suffering from liver cancer, he actually died from complications of AIDS.
What year was this? When was this?
When Cohn died, 86.
80s. Okay.
He died in 86. He died 5 weeks after being disbarred. So he got disbarred. Then 5 weeks later, New York was like, I don't know, you're pretty reprehensible. And I was like, nigga, you like 40 years late. This man has been a menace since the Red Scare. You just now, you just figured this out. Now, his death left his role for intelligence mob politics network vacant. So somebody got to fill it. Now, the Nixon administration was apparently desperate to find Hoover's pedophile list, because now we going back in time a little bit. This is the 70s. And he had political dossiers too. They believed that Hoover had the goods on the Democratic National Convention. And once Hoover died, they felt that he had to go get the leverage himself. Hey, if they got dirt on DNC, I need to go get it myself, which led them straight to Watergate. This is how we got Watergate. So we're going to talk about that. Now, in 1972 in April, this journalist, Jack Anderson, reportedly received a dossier from this man named William Haddad detailing the plans of this group called the November Group, which was technically Nixon's like advertising agency, which I'm like, why does Nixon have a personal advertising agency? None of my business, but clearly y'all let Republicans, presidents do whatever they want to do. And the plan was to burglarize. Yeah. Okay. The DNC headquarters. That sounds right.
Yeah.
A month before the break-in, Haddad alerted the DNC head, who then met up with a private investigator to discuss it. So the White House assigned these men that they call plumbers. It was this man named James McCord. None of this matters. But James McCord, CIA Office of Security. And then he was known for like being able to use electronics for eavesdropping. And surveillance. That was his thing. Then there was a man named G. Gordon Liddy, who was former FBI. And then he worked for the general counsel for the committee to reelect the president. But then the mastermind behind the operation was this man named E. Howard Hunt, who was a CIA veteran. Now, Hunt was reportedly delivering sealed envelopes and packages containing information about the White House plumbers to the CIA official overseeing Operation Chaos, which is its own thing. It's a domestic spying program. This is like 007, honestly. A CIA firm was hired by Hunt to carry out security sweeps for the committee. Okay. Now we get to the Watergate break-in. And basically on June 17, 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the DNC. And so the headquarters at the Watergate complex were obviously in DC. Why are you high?
No, I just keep thinking, well, it's a hot thought.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Forrest Gump.
What? Why you keep thinking of Forrest Gump?
Because of Watergate.
Was there a scene?
Those flashlights, they're just keeping me up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just kept thinking about it when you talking about Watergate.
I forgot about that.
Honestly, so sorry. It had nothing to do with anything.
That means something. Wait a minute, because he was across the street, right?
Yeah, he was like, they're just keeping me up. I don't know what they're doing over there.
Okay, now I get it. Okay, wait.
Yeah, I kept thinking of that scene.
Put a pin in that, because that makes sense. Hear me. So they broke into the DNC, right? The headquarters at Watergate. Are you okay? Jeremy is struggling.
No, my headphones went out.
Uh-oh. You can hear yourself, though.
Okay.
But I see sound, so you're fine.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So they break into the DNC headquarters at Watergate complex in D.C. They were caught red-handed with wiretapping equipment. Because clearly Forrest Gump turned them in.
Yeah.
2 young Washington Post reporters, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, they followed the trail with the help of this mysterious high-level source named Deep Throat. Okay. Later, we ended up finding out who he was. His name was Mark Felt. He was actually associate director of the FBI. But at the time, he was incognito. And it is believed that the Deep Throat is not just one person, it's multiple people. They were all just like giving information to the press. I joke about this all the time because I say right now we could use a deep throat. Like we need some snitches on the ends. Not like that, but you got
I didn't say a word.
Now, they proved that the burglars were paid with hush money. So they found out that, okay, the burglars were paid with hush money from a fund that was controlled by the committee to reelect the president. So they're like, wait a minute now. So that would mean that Nixon was involved in the fund that paid the burglars. Okay, we're confused. So the scandal exploded. And then it was revealed that President Nixon had this secret voice-activated taping system in the Oval Office too. And he refused to hand over the tapes. So they were like, sir, you're doing a lot. Like, you're doing a lot. And that led to a constitutional crisis. So the quote unquote smoking gun was finally released. It proved that Nixon had ordered a CIA-led cover-up to block the FBI from investigating only days after the break-in. So if you're not involved, why are you trying to prevent the FBI from investigating this break-in?
We're not going to acknowledge that Nixon had voice-activated technology? Like, is that common knowledge? I didn't know that. I didn't know you could do that.
It's common knowledge to people who know about Watergate, yeah.
Okay.
But is it appropriate? No. They said it was a complete, total constitutional crisis. They were like, nigga, no, you're not supposed. And then when they asked for the tapes, he wouldn't hand them over.
No. I mean the technological part. There's voice. I didn't know, like, at that time, there was voice-activated technology.
You said this the other day.
Did I say that?
On part 1, when we were talking about how they bugged all the houses, you like, they had bugs.
Maybe I was not aware of the technology at that time. Like, okay. I thought some of this was new.
So Nixon was facing impeachment and he was going to be removed from office. And Nixon actually became the first and only U.S. president to resign. And he resigned in 1974. He did the right thing because he sucked. But in this book, it takes a different approach to Watergate. Just blocks from the Watergate complex was the Columbia Plaza Apartments. It housed a sophisticated honeypot operation that was run by a woman named Heidi Ricken. The apartment was allegedly wired for sound and video. And Heidi Ricken wasn't even just a madam. She was a girlfriend of a mobster in the super mob that we talked about in episode 1, which was, that has nothing to do with it other than the fact that she ran a whorehouse and her boyfriend is a mobster. But why did the plumbers, Nixon's secret unit, why did they break into the DNC? Webb suggests that it was for the John list, a physical ledger of powerful men that were a part of the Columbia Plaza ring. And you're probably like, why? One of the DNC officials, Maxie Wells, she had a desk that was specifically targeted. It was rumored that her phone was being used to arrange the encounters. So basically the DNC headquarters were running hoes. They were looking for hoes from across the street or down the street. And they were using this one lady's phone to do it. And so the plumbers were looking for the leverage because they're like, hey, the mob basically was holding this leverage over the Democrats. We want whatever that is, and it must be in this office. So the Nixon administration could seize the leverage for themselves to help Nixon get reelected. That's why the committee to reelect were the ones that were funding the burglary. That's Whitney's theory. That's very scandalous, in my opinion. I had never heard about the possibility of there being like a sex ring. And then when you read about it in the book, like it's actually pretty thorough, like how deep she goes into like the players and how they set up the phone and how it's very interesting. But then there was the Page Boy scandal. Allegedly, the scandal began when this person named Leroy Williams Jr., he was a high school student. He was working at the as a congressional page, and he claimed that he had sexual encounters with 3 members of the House and procured prostitutes for a senator. So they're all pretty messy. But one of these incidents reportedly occurred at the Watergate office complex. And so these people are gross. It's kind of like, I said this today on TikTok. I said, it's not a problem that you do things. That's not the problem. The problem is the fact that you do things that are sometimes very illegal. And even though you got all these people around you and they making you feel like, oh, you doing it too, we all doing it together.
I don't know where people get this
I don't know where people get that from.
Like,
because here's the thing, too much trust. Especially when you are in a power position, you have to think like that. Like you have to think like the person who's like, I can't be caught up with a bunch of people doing cocaine and ordering prostitutes. I'm a powerful individual. Now, if you decide to do that on your private time, you hit up Heidi Ricken and you're like, hey, I need a girl. And you do that in your private time. I think that's fine.
That feels different to me than that whole like a bunch of like powerful people doing a bunch of legal stuff in one room. Like, I guess maybe that's part of the power people feel like they fall into, and it's like we're all here doing whatever we want. Like it's that that cliche kind of thing.
It is. It's like
it's too much trust to me.
I mean, and you hear that in serial killer. I did one episode on. It was called the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders, and this guy. It's the movie Changeling with Angelina Jolie, the Clint Eastwood movie, is what that story is. What that movie is based on. But the guy, his name was Northcott. He was the one kidnapping these kids and like killing them. But then when his mom found out about it, she was like, she didn't want her son to go to jail. So she ends up kind of implicating all of them. So nobody could lie on each other. So like they had a victim there and she's like, okay, Pat, she'll take the axe, pass it to the next person. But like, okay, you got to hit him too. Because if he going to jail and I'm going to jail and he going to jail, everybody in here going to jail. So she made all of them take a whack, which I was like, that's crazy. But that's how crazy. Yeah, that's how criminals kind of create this web of criminality, is when, especially for weaker people, when they put them in the position to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to all go to a sex party and we're going to do all these drugs. And then you got a bunch of underage people walking in and you're like,
and they're like,
do I leave or I'm already
cocaine.
here? I'm already high. We already doing the things, and that's how a lot of these people get caught up.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I'm the one that's like, that's a kid. Let me put my clothes back on.
Yeah.
What you mean?
You gotta leave. Like the smart thing to do is leave.
You should leave
immediately. Yeah.
Like I'ma leave. I'ma leave all the time.
Yeah.
I know you that way too. Like
you
already. Oh yeah, 100%. We were just talking about that the other day.
I'm so comfortable.
I will put my coat on and I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Shoes and I'm not even gonna say nothing. I'm not even gonna say nothing. I'm gonna just book. So, but that's what's so interesting about this, because you would think like, okay, you're a congressional page, blah, blah, blah. You just doing what your boss asks you to do. But at the same time, though, you procuring prostitutes,
well, it gets tricky, man.
I know. Look, I'm not going to say what director this is. Yeah, I'm not going to say what director this is, but I definitely knew, not on my current situation, my current job, but like.
Not at all.
Never.
Not this. Far removed.
Not at all.
Years
is such
ago.
a lovely job. So, the Page scandal. So then one of these incidents that what happened in the Watergate complex, and the investigators uncovered a drug ring that was utilizing the access to the congressional pages and like the assistants and the tour guides and the elevator operators. They were all basically distributing cocaine to members of Congress.
I mean, I guess that makes sense.
I mean,
somehow,
that's like
maybe.
that. Could you imagine getting cocaine in her office, in an inner office envelope? Like your page is.
Can I be honest?
You like,
little
I've
bit.
done it before. It's too
No.
easy.
I don't do cocaine. No judgment.
I don't do cocaine. Either. I don't
but
have the
like
sinuses.
again, same energy from before. I won't mention it. I've been on projects where my office mate, may or may not have had the situation happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And that's what we were talking about too, is like the director who needs cocaine and like prostitutes. Like they ask the little people for
it's
that.
weird being in that stuff. Like I've never directly had to do it, but
You heard about it.
I've heard about it and been like not that far removed from, big important people making some weird choices, and you kind of go along with it because the way that the industry,
the hierarchy is.
Yeah, the hierarchy.
I mean, and two, like you just kind of feel like, well, I ain't doing the cocaine. I'm just picking it up. But it's
nothing illegal or creepy. But like, I've seen some questionable, like, he wants a what?
100%.
He needs a bottle of what? Right now?
I knew of one director that like his per diem was only hookers and blow. That was like
that's crazy what you just said.
Yeah, and he only wanted cash. He only wanted cash. Give him a check if you want to.
What a life.
Hookers and blow.
man.
Hookers and blow.
No, not the part about the hookers and blow. I just mean like per
Oh.
diem. Just give me straight cash right
Yeah, he like, I want straight cash, and everybody's like, oh yeah, because he's gonna want it for hookers and blow.
Does he not know you can cash a check?
Yeah, but a lot of those rich directors, they don't like doing the check thing because either they have to send it to their agents, or they have they put it into their accounts, or they send it to like I had one producer that like hated his per diem checks like going to his home because then his wife knew about like his extra money.
That's terrible.
It was like he always wanted his per diem checks off the books. It wasn't off the books.
The books from his wife.
He just didn't want his wife to know. It was on our books. It wasn't on her books.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's
yeah.
Wow.
So I'm like, we know why you want these. You know, yeah, because what per diem's like $70 a day. Like, be for real. I know what's going on here. So there was this journalist, Jack Anderson. He reported that more than 15 members of Congress were allegedly customers of this drug ring. And several individuals were basically arrested by undercover police, including a former page and an elevator operator. So yeah, they were using like all of these small guys to like do the drug deliveries. A young woman named Devin Dupree, she was an assistant to a DC nightclub owner. She was also implicated, and she later entered a federal witness protection program. She like, this is bigger than me. You're going to have to keep me safe. The investigation into the Page Boy scandal was allegedly suppressed, and it was monitored by individuals with deep ties to both the intelligence community and organized crime, because duh. And in the world of sex blackmail schemes, there was this man named Robert Keith Gray. He comes up as an anonymous tip in that investigation, according to the investigator who drew up the memo, but then the memo disappeared. What blows me, it's the investigating your own department for me. Because there's nothing worse than being like, that's like right now where people are like, oh, you know, you need to call the FBI. For what? Cash Patel's running the FBI. Like Cash Patel, like even with the Epstein files, Cash Patel is FBI investigating the FBI. It's not going to go the way we want it to go.
Yeah.
Like you need third party agents. And right now, like there will be no accountability if nobody from outside of our world handles it. Because right now, 45 has put so many great people that are loyal to him in place that they're not going to do anything. I mean, I hate to admit this. It pains my body to even say it. But there is something so nefarious and brilliant about these maneuvers. Like, you literally put not 45 himself, but every piece on the board just in case. Like, he know how now mind you, they're all extremely corrupt and they may go to jail if, you know, we are able to flip the House and the Senate in November. But at the end of the day, yeah, exactly. That's like if we get elections. It's like, that's a joke, but it's not. It's possible at this point.
Barely.
So barely. But the ones that, these 3-letter agencies are supposed to be bipartisan. They're supposed to be doing the investigative work, but they are corrupt as shit. Like really, really corrupt. And so Robert Keith Gray, he was mentioned in the tips, but he was not a rando. Okay, he was not random. He was a powerful lobbyist. He was a PR executive at this company called Hill and Knowlton. And he was a high-ranking official previously in the Eisenhower administration. This man was like well known. And he controlled the flow of information regarding like federal jobs and political sponsorship. Like he was a power broker. Gray was a co-chair of Reagan's first inauguration. His political ties ran deep. He was the man who literally vetted the new elite coming into DC in the 1980s. But he also represented this bank called the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. It's called BCCI. The bank was founded in 1972 by this man named Aga Hassan Abedi. He was a Pakistani financier. It was a Pakistani bank, but it was running in London elites. but it was funded by Arab oil money, and it was protected by European tax laws. Yeah. So to avoid regulation, Abedi registered the bank in Luxembourg and in the Cayman Islands. There you go. And because there were two banks that were split into two different entities, no single country central bank had the authority to audit it. So he just worked out every loophole. And while it was
everything is corrupt. Like
it's
that's
so
just the more you
corrupt.
talk, I'm like everything's corrupt. Like
it's like we
stop.
literally they cheated. They're cheating. While it was registered in Luxembourg, its actual operations were in London. So this gave the bank the veneer of like British prestige, because you know anything with a British accent just feels smart, except when it's Cockney. That's not. It's not that
Don't
one.
Don't talk about them. I like them.
Now,
good day, governor.
Yeah, it also allowed it to interface with like the financial elite while it was running black network operations out of Pakistan. So it had many faces, and the BCCI gained like secret illegal control over First American bank shares. That was a major bank out of DC that had a lot of like congressmen and political figures. They used First American, and the control that was held by BCCI and its associates was literally created for blackmail opportunities. And so his client list featured people like Adnan Khashoggi and the Teamsters. Which Hoffa comes up a few times in his book. And you talk about not touching Rothschilds. I'm not about to talk about.
That's why I just gave you that look. I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything about it. I am in
Chicago. I'm gonna
skip that whole part.
Close.
Let me know when you move to the next part of everything, because I won't be saying anything.
We moving on. Gray also maintained a post at the Heritage Foundation. That probably sounds familiar, but if it doesn't, it's the American conservative think tank that was established in the 1970s, the one that helped Reagan rise to prominence. And its mandate of leadership report provided 2,000 policy recommendations to the Reagan administration. 60% of them were implemented in the first year. But most recently, the foundation spearheaded Project 2025. Yes, comprehensive and very racist transition plans and policy platform designed for Donald J. Trump's administration.
I was going to say his full name, but I guess that's not his full name.
But alas, BCCI eventually became known as the Bank of Crooks and Criminals. That's what people called it, due to its role in money laundering for dictators, intelligence agencies, including the CIA, and organized crime. Crimes such as arms trading, drugs, sex trafficking. The bank's black network was involved in the procurement of Pakistani prostitutes these teenage girls that they called the singing and dancing girls. It sounds familiar. So as Whitney Webb writes, Gray's firm was a PR front for the CIA. And when Bill Casey, the leader of the CIA, campaign manager at the time, but later he led the CIA, he needed to launder a regime's reputation to push a specific narrative. That was his thing. I gotta push whatever I need to push because I'm fighting for Reagan to be president, which I'm like, God, that was a big mistake. Ronald Reagan sucked. He really did suck. And Roy Cohn and Keith Gray, Robert Keith Gray, they worked with this CIA guy. And Gray held a position with the law firm. Like I said, this entity was a CIA front. I think that's the thing, too, that is annoying about what's happening, is that everything that we thought was a conspiracy theory is also starting to just feel real true. Like, I had an ex-boyfriend who used to, go off about like the New World Order and how they wanted all global governments to be one government, and how like the CIA and blah blah. And mind you, we knew about King, we knew about Malcolm X. I mean, first of all, I can't hear a word you saying.
I said a fact.
Oh,
that's
gotcha.
a fact.
Okay. But yeah, 100%. And now just seeing it, I'm like, okay, yeah, he was a little right. I mean, the level of control that these people have, how they disseminated materials because they knew that they had the utmost leverage on the most powerful people. Do what I want you to do, or I'm dropping it. Do what I want you to do. Remember all that party we went to on Friday? Am I going to see you on Tuesday? Okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like that whole exchange is just crazy. And Gray was the co-founder of this club called the Georgetown Club, which in the 70s and 80s was basically like the Blue Suite. This was a private, highly exclusive environment where very prestigious men could meet. And these social environments were about observing, but at the same time, they would engage in some acts. You know, they go there, they'd have dinner, but you really showed up to be indebted to the network, kind of like what we talked about. Former CIA agents one CIA agent alleged that his partner, he used the club to arrange sexual encounters for politicians and for businessmen, which were permanently recorded using hidden cameras. I just think that's crazy. Like, it's one thing to have, you know, it's one thing to be at your homeboy's party, but it's like, you didn't know that he engaged in this at all. Like at all, like had you not ever heard of him doing this to some, you know what I mean? Like these circles be so tight. So if you go to Jessica's party and you know that Jessica just blackmailed Frank 3 days ago, you know what I'm saying? Like,
do you know though?
I guess you don't.
Like if this person has hidden cameras, like is it just common party knowledge? I would assume it's like all very low key.
Yeah. I mean,
guess.
Unless they know that they have cameras and they just assume that they're not going to do anything with the footage. But I'm like, you could never assume that.
I don't know why you'd make that assumption.
Yeah, you could never assume that. Now, the blackmail was allegedly a formal CIA task designed to coerce members of Congress, rendering the oversight committees totally ineffective. So all of these people who were in charge of, you know, keeping everything at bay, what do they call those guardrails, which is what they call it on the news, they were totally ineffective. And two of the co-owners of the Georgetown Club, Anna Chenot, alongside this man named General Graves, was the leader of Operation Paper, which was a CIA-backed operation that funneled weapons to national Chinese fighters. All of these types of people, all of these different operations ended up like kind of starting at the Georgetown Club. It's like, I guess it's just like a social club, like what they used to just call like a gentleman's club. You know, like Chicago Athletic Association for years, they didn't even allow women. They didn't start allowing women to the 70s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was an athletic social club. It was for, of course, athletes, but, you know, politicians used to kick it around there. And I think these people just created these very safe spaces for people to not only engage in crazy sex parties and drugs, but also to come up with these like very nefarious plans. Be like, oh yeah, you know what? Oh, you want to do that thing? Let me introduce you to Paul. And because Paul, he does the X, Y, and Z. And, you know, I think his company, maybe y'all could work together. That's kind of what it is. I mean, So a lot of these connections, you know, obviously through the CIA and stuff like that, when they started working like in China, when they started working in the Golden Triangle, like Burma and Laos and Thailand, you know, this was already one of the biggest opium producing regions in the world. And Whitney Webb argues that Operation Paper marked a turning point because it normalized using illegal revenue streams to fund wars, which is crazy when you think about it, but we've heard about this in the Black community. Drug money became policy. And once intelligence agencies learned that they could fund operations without Congress, they were like, okay, let's do it. And it was never, you know, if you think about episode 1, it was never about communism. Communism was literally a red herring. They do like, whatever. You know, they working with the ops. You can't be working with communists and then be like, We fighting communism. How? You know, you basically receiving drugs from
Don't we do
a
stuff like
communist
that
nation.
all the time?
Huh?
Don't we do stuff like that all the time?
100%. So Georgetown Club helped cultivate the relationships required for these networks that were called the private CIA. It was a network of former intelligence officials and rogue assets who began operating outside of the government oversight, and it grew out of this secret team from the 1960s and 70s. But it basically utilized like all these different special units. Like one was called Task Force 157. It was a super secret naval intelligence unit that was created in the 60s to track Russian shipments. But of course, they take these things and they completely corrupt them. It was under the guise of national security, like 9/11. That's another topic for another day.
Or an edit.
And speaking of Task 157 and obviously the Georgetown Club, Henry Kissinger, who comes up in Epstein files, by the way, he helped foster another team, right? The Safari Club. I'm like, y'all love having these creepy pervert clubs, don't you? I mean, but I guess you got to find your people. You know?
Are they all creepy?
I don't know. But they feel like it. But it was a secretive alliance of intelligence agencies in France, Egypt, Morocco, whatever. It was formed to bypass the post-Watergate Congress because they were trying to strict the CIA, and the CIA was like, yeah, you're not about to do that. So the club, they started just like bankrolling, like getting money from foreign nations and like selling drugs and doing all of this crazy stuff to avoid Congress approval. And they used BCCI Bank to do it. Now, as an American diplomat and a political scientist who served as the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of State under President Nixon and Gerald Ford, Kissinger comes up a lot in this saga. And Kissinger moved seamlessly between government and private billionaire circles of the mega group, and is another one of those government people with like government credentials and like diplomatic status that made all of this appear legal. You know, he got that like je ne sais quoi that makes them feel like, oh, well, if he's involved, then it's fine. You know how they just like one person vouches for an entire system. But at the end of the day,
Don't trust that?
Yeah, I don't trust that at all. And Georgetown Club, because it created a space for these very private meetings, it ultimately provided the cover needed for them to operate with impunity in DC. So some of the most heinous operations, like I mentioned, came out of the Georgetown Club. And one in particular is Iran-Contra. Did you watch Snowfall?
No.
I didn't either. Okay, good.
Oh, okay. That made me feel better. I didn't think you were about to say that.
No.
I've seen a bunch of clips that made me want to watch it. I was like, oh,
my mom
good.
loved it. She said it was so good. Now
you did this to me. I keep seeing that on TikTok, actually.
That bodies.
Yeah, that one
one.
too.
I'm like, oh, I need to watch this just for that.
I've heard really good. How many seasons was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea.
I might try to check it out.
But Iran-Contra, and there's a Black people connection to this one. This was another thing that comes out of these environments, these secret clubs and organization. This was a U.S. foreign policy operation in the 1980s that had two goals. You sell weapons to Iran and you funnel the money to anti-communist rebels in Nicaragua. I said it right that time.
Nicaragua.
And they were known as the Contras. So Congress had explicitly provided funding for the Contras through the Bolin Amendments, which were basically a series of laws that were designed to stop U.S. government money from trying to overthrow the Nicaraguan government, the Sandinistas. But the overturning of the Sandinistas was something the U.S. wanted to do because of the Cold War. It was like fearing about communism and the spread of like Marxist ideology. So they were like, okay, we need to do something about the Sandinistas. But they ended up putting something in play that were designed to stop the U.S. government from funding them. Sounds familiar? It's kind of like what we kind of did should have done with Israel. Or if you think about what happened like with Ukraine, when we start funding people's wars, like I've always been weird about that. Like we throwing money into these regions ultimately because we want their natural resources, but that can create major problems down the line. And this is one of them, because in the mid 1980s, U.S. citizens were starting to be held hostage in Lebanon by militants called the Hezbollah, who were linked to Iran. And so the administration, they wanted them released. The United States wanted them released. And so despite the negotiations, like, oh, we don't negotiate with terrorists vibe, which we always try to have, the senior officials in the Reagan administration, including this man named Oliver North, began a secret initiative selling anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles to Iran, which was in a brutal war with Iraq. Okay. So basically the government, these guys, these staffers, these national security staffers are just doing whatever they want. They're going rogue. The U.S. now, in exchange for the weapons, because again, we got hostages being taken. The U.S. expected Iran to use their influence over the terrorist group, the Hezbollah, to release the hostages in Lebanon. But a few hostages were released, but the Hezbollah simply just kidnapped more. So they were like, okay, we'll release those. We're going to kidnap some other ones. So they were still kidnapping more people to keep the trade going, because now you've just proved to them that, oh, if we kidnap people, you'll give us guns. Great.
Okay.
Why would they stop kidnapping? So the U.S. ended up shipping over 2,000 missiles to a nation it had officially state-sponsored as terrorists. Yes. Which sounds familiar? No? Okay. All right. So the U.S. weapons were sold to Iran via Israel, which was under an arms embargo, and then used the proceeds to sell funds to the Contras. So Oliver North had what he called a neat idea, and the U.S. was selling these missiles to Iran at a massive markup. And so Oliver North and his associates diverted the extra money, the extra profit for the sales to fund the Contras.
It's all corrupt.
It's ridiculous. I don't know how to make it. It's a money laundering scheme in a way. The Contras are anti-communist rebels. Ultimately, you said that you weren't going to give any money to that government. And then these two guys basically figured out a way to do that through the sale of guns. That's it. It's way more complicated than that, but yeah, that's basically.
It's way more complicated than that.
That's basically
Is
it.
that what you just said?
Well, because as I was explaining it, I was confusing myself. I was like,
no, you weren't.
Let me backtrack. I'm gonna listen to this later and be
Wait,
like, wow.
you said you were confusing yourself and then looked over at me
myself
and said, you look confused.
That was before I said that.
I don't think it was much before.
Whatever. Now, anyway, so we both high. I'm sorry. If this is
I'm
all
not.
over the place, this is why I don't eat. I don't try to do edibles when I do episodes.
I'm sharp and focused.
Okay. All right. So there's that. I hope I got that right. So by 1986, the entire thing unravels, and a cargo plane carrying supplies was shot down in Nicaragua. And one of the survivors said that he was working with the CIA. He was like, I don't know, I work with the CIA. And so after that, they were blasted in a Lebanese magazine. So now the jig was up. The investigations led to the resignation of like all these top officials, and like people didn't trust the Reagan administration no more. They're like, oh, so you said you weren't going to do that, but your people figured out a way to do that, and you ain't even know that they were doing that. It was a thing, which it was operated by that like private CIA situation where they just felt like for the sake of national security, we could do whatever we want to, and we can navigate around Congress. That's why, like, even when people are like, well, Congress hasn't approved it, it's like, well, Congress clearly doesn't read anything. Like, they don't read their bills. They don't read anything at all. So yeah, even if they didn't, like, even if you put it in the paperwork, they probably would agree to it anyway.
The government's an illusion. Like,
yeah, it is. It's not a real thing. It really isn't. Now,
I don't mean like it's literally not real. I just mean like these checks and balances, quote unquote. Like this, that's not how things work.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's how they want us to think it works.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the Iran-Contra scandal is also blamed for the infamous crack epidemic, as drug rings that were run by the Nicaraguans were selling cocaine to people like Freeway Ricky Ross. The profits of those drug sales were funneled back to the Contras. So they're making money off guns and off drugs. There have been investigations and committees formed to support the Contra supply network's involvement in drug trafficking, but the government doesn't like to admit this, and, you know, that's not even surprising. You know, nobody ever really wants to admit that the crack epidemic was like intentional, but that one dude,
they do.
The one that died. No, black people definitely do, but that one dude that from the government that admitted that they did it on purpose before he died.
Who?
I can't remember his name. He was like on his deathbed and he admitted it. But it was intentionally meant to hurt the black community, even though they were very specific. I mean, because when you think about it, you were very specific about who was getting these drugs, specifically crack. Now, Oliver North's journals later support drug links, but whether the CIA intentionally fueled the crack epidemic as a matter of policy remains a point of debate among everyone but black people, and is often categorized by critics as a conspiracy of negligence rather than you do that. Oh no, that, you know, it wasn't an actual explicit demand. It's just something that happened out of these drug trades. Because I think Freeway Rick Ross is the one who kind of claims that he not invented crack. I don't want to say invented crack, but you know, he was getting pure cocaine from the Nicaraguans. He was just busting it down so it would stretch. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that was the issue. It's like they didn't really drop crack into the neighborhood. They did drop a lot of cocaine though. And people were doing a lot of cocaine back then. But okay, so then
people do a lot of cocaine now.
I mean, I don't know though. When I went to Cat Williams' show, he was talking about how like people don't do drugs like they used to because of the fentanyl poisoning. They're like everybody dying from fentanyl. Huh. People they just afraid to do drugs. Like there used to be that time where it's like, hey, now it's like, ooh, it may have fentanyl in it, and I don't want to die. I was trying to have a good time. Wasn't trying to die, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
I received that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's still a lot of people that do drugs.
For sure. Like, they're called drug addicts. The people who do it, yes. And people who obviously do drugs casually, that's the risk they're willing to take. But that's usually too because you got somebody that you think you trust.
So is LA not cokey anymore?
Not that I don't know. I ain't out there.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
that's the one place
probably
it felt
are on doing a lot of cocaine.
I say that because it felt cliche. Some of the years I was there were like it was actually around like that.
You know what?
Like I was offered more than once, and that's not really.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah.
But I will say though,
I was like, oh, y'all really be out there just.
I will kind of pull back on my statement a little bit because there was a time, when that fentanyl thing was acting super crazy. That was one thing. But like, I think I read an article where they were saying that like Trump's like kind of being all over the place with like policy and ICE and like the Epstein stuff and all this other stuff kind of being all over the place has kind of made it easier for cartels to just bring stuff in. Like they just like, I'm like when he was blowing up those boats and stuff, like he would just randomly strike on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic or something. They were like, he ain't focused on us. So this is a good time to be a drug dealer. I
suppose that's solid logic.
Yeah, it is solid logic. Exactly. Now, Clintons. We got to talk about the Clintons.
What? I don't know. Okay.
This episode is all over the place.
I didn't know we were at the Clintons.
Well, first of all, because it's still the 80s. We're still in the 80s. But the Clintons, BCCI, that bank I was talking about, he was governor around that time. He wasn't president yet. So the CIA, and CIA is a big part of this, obviously. They had a front that was an airline called Southern Air Transport. And they used this airport called Mena Intermountain Municipal Airport as a base. And the pilots flew weapons down to the Contra and, according to numerous investigations and witnesses, flew cocaine back into the U.S. Now, the investigations into Mena were consistently stalled and they were shut down. And Webb argues that Clinton's role was to provide the blind eye at the state level. So just allowing it come in with no interruption, ensuring that the federal enterprises, which is, this whole system we're talking about, could operate without local interference. So as the governor of Arkansas, it was Arkansas. He was basically like, all right, I don't see nothing at all. Do your thing, right? So the Arkansas Development Finance Authority was a state agency that was created under Clinton, and that was called an ADFA, and it was used to launder profits from that airport drug operation, into legitimate state bonds. I'm like, let the corruption continue. State bonds and loans, by the way. So Reagan and Bush era intelligence operations, they weren't really paying attention to a lot of what was going on. And the Bush and Clinton camps were two sides of the same coin. Bush maintained the intelligence federal side, while Clinton managed the operational and logistical side in Arkansas. And so Whitney Webb suggests that this paved a way for Clinton's 1992 victory because, one, his uncle was involved, deeply involved. His uncle is a well-known mobster who I'm going to mention. I was like, I had no idea Clinton had mob family. First of all, I didn't even think about the mob being in Arkansas.
You never saw Banging in Little Rock, did you?
You mentioned that on the last episode.
Changed my life.
Yeah, I need to watch that because you have mentioned that a few times.
Changed my life.
Now, okay, so this man named Jackson Stevens brought Bank of Crooks and Criminal, BCCI, into the U.S., and he was providing that enterprise. He was providing services for the enterprise. They didn't care about who was Republican or Democrat. They cared about influence. He was an Arkansas billionaire, and he was the head of this company, which was the largest investment bank outside of Wall Street. This man was the primary financier of Bill Clinton's political career. So he went from the governor's mansion to the White House. And Stephen was the man who brokered the deal to bring BCCI to the U.S. So his contacts run deep. He used the bank to help the enterprise move these black funds while simultaneously using his influence to protect Clinton. And so Raymond Buddy Clinton is Clinton's uncle, Bill Clinton's uncle. He was the primary link to this area called Hot Springs. And he had his own underworld, which at the time was neutral ground. They were like the Switzerland of the mob. Hot Springs was essentially the Las Vegas before it was Las Vegas. It was an illegal gambling mecca run by this well-known New York mobster named The Killer, which I'm like, Jesus Christ, The Killer as a mob name is wild. That's not even remotely incognito.
I mean, it's a little on the nose, isn't it?
It is definitely on the nose.
That's not even scary. I mean, I guess it's scary if you
it's just so on the nose that it's it's hard to be scary.
It's you couldn't take any more time.
Yeah. We used to always have Jimmy the Ice Pick come to the office. He's dead now. Yeah.
Why?
He was a mobster. He had a crush on my boss, which was crazy. Yeah.
Why was he at the? What? I'm asking questions.
We know why he was there.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
So Okay, so he acted as a surrogate father and an early mentor to the uncle acted as a early mentor to Bill Clinton, introducing him to these fixers and to these power brokers in Arkansas. He helped secure the early political backing of Bill Clinton, and he basically needed Bill, to keep the gambling industry thriving in Arkansas, because that's how the mob was making money. So, and the liquor too. Now, Hot Springs was also a destination for high-level figures who deposited into the favor bank so they could relax, so they can conduct business without being in D.C. And Buddy was part of that local infrastructure that ensured that the visitors were taken care of and that their activities remained secret. But Arkansas's political elite were linked to the very same financial networks like BCCI that were managing the illegal arms and the drug profits. So as soon as you get the criminal element, you already know that whatever happens at these parties are no longer going to be a secret. You are going to be controlled. These networks gain leverage over all of its participants. So if drug profits provided the funding for these secret wars, then blackmail provided the silence and protection from the law. And together they created a state within a state, and that operated above the law. And that's what we've been calling the enterprise. 2 men were involved in the enterprise's international arms, and that was Adnan Khashoggi, which I think I told you about, and Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned Adnan Khashoggi earlier, but Khashoggi was the primary middleman, and he was definitely involved in Iran-Contra in like that secret arms to hostages exchange that they did between the U.S. and Iran. And the CIA was like moving funds illegally. So he was the one that set that whole thing up. Now, if that name sounds familiar today, it's probably because his name keeps popping up with the Epstein situation, and also because his nephew, Jamal Khashoggi, was murdered in 2018. I don't know. Does that sound familiar? Jamal Khashoggi?
No, I think I was surprised his name was Jamal.
Oh, okay. So Khashoggi was just doing whatever he wanted to do. And Webb argues that Khashoggi's deals relied on the off-the-books banking systems. And Khashoggi was technically the new fixer on the international front that could bridge the gap between Western governments and the Middle East. And Webb argues that Khashoggi's influence waned in the early 1990s due to the fallout of the Iran-Contra thing, and the BCI collapsed in 1991. But by the time it was shut down, BCI had become this go-to bank for everyone from Saddam Hussein to Manuel Noriega to the Medellin cartel and the CIA. So the fact that the CIA is even on a list with people like Saddam Hussein, Noriega, and the Medellin cartel, that's crazy. Correct. Crazy. And while all of that is happening intentionally nationally, the Franklin Community Federal Credit Union served as a local piggy bank for a network in Omaha, Nebraska. So this is one of those, between the Arkansas thing, the Nebraska thing, we have gone from DC, now we national. We setting up shop wherever we want to. They have basically spread them. Omaha? Hot Springs, Arkansas? It's like they
keep undermining Arkansas.
I know. They have planted these themselves everywhere. And so when the credit union failed in 1988, $40 million went missing. Now, this is the very interesting. Webb argues that these funds weren't just stolen from, this man, by this man or his lifestyle. This was used to funnel into covert operations, including the funding of the Nicaraguans. It all goes back to Iran-Contra. What a tangle web you weave, because all of these people are somehow connected to that one event because they were all making money off of it. And so King, his name's Lawrence E. King, his operations mirrored the larger bank scandals in the 1980s, but he was in a smaller area. He was in Nebraska, and he was Black, which I was like, dun, 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 because what? He was Black. He was linked to Iran-Contra. He was using executive jet aviation to move passengers in and out of D.C. The credit union, mind you, he runs a credit union. The credit union opened in 1969, and it was North Omaha's first black community credit union, because at the time, like, they weren't willing to allow Black people to have bank accounts anywhere. And so he was a business student. He quickly turned into like full on Black Republican. He was a Black Republican. He's basically like Clarence Thomas, kind of like Uncle Ruckus. He ran in the Reagan and Bush circles, and King's Credit Union shared the same Black fund operations that they had back in the day. So now they're using his credit union to do what they've all been doing in Omaha. It was used, the AF whatever DA was also used by the Clintons. They all used the same process. And so both of the ADFA and King's Credit Union, both of those were used to launder proceeds of this quote unquote enterprise. And then in 1991, King pled guilty to charges stemming from fraud because, you know, he was convicted of embezzling $39 million out of the $40 million that was missing from the credit union. And investigators found that King kept a set of books and sold fraudulent certificates of deposit to inflate his institution's assets. And he was sentenced to 15 years. He was released in 2001. But the crazy part of the Franklin scandal centers on the allegations that the missing money wasn't just for King's jewelry, but for his high-level child sex trafficking blackmail ring. King was accused of being a pimp who trafficked vulnerable children, primarily from the Boys Town, Nebraska, and foster care, to satisfy political and business elites. You know what's crazy? Because we're almost done. I'm going to say this. I saw this on Diary of a CEO, the podcast. He was interviewing a spy. I think he was CIA. And he said, the reason why what's going on is not that far-fetched when it comes to like child sex trafficking is because that when CIA focuses so much on intelligence and receiving intelligence about foreign governments, institutions, whomever they're investigating, that if it means that in order to get that information, I have to deliver a child, then so be it.
They said on the Diary CEO.
Diary CEO, it was a CIA agent, and the host asked him about the Epstein thing. Mm. And he said, how realistic is it that, you know, everybody's a freaking pedophile? And he was just like, but the thinking of the agency is that you get that intelligence at all costs. Mm-hmm. And if your agent goes in, talks to the person, and the person says something about him being interested in kids or wanting drugs or needing X, Y, and Z, and you think that is going to get you the information, then you need to get him them kids some drugs or X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. So now, yeah, it's sick.
You'd find maybe another way.
I mean, because especially at the end of the day,
quote unquote good guy.
Well, that's the thing, is because then are we fighting crimes here? Like, what are we getting this intelligence for? Is it just because I know it's always under the guise of national security, but right. Like, you seem to be making it worse if you negotiating with very sick people and then kidnapping children from foster care.
Yeah, you're just matching crimes at that point.
It's like you fighting fire with fire. How is this working?
Yeah, you're fighting crime with crime.
So the allegations describe children being flown to the East Coast, D.C. and New York for sex parties. Very disturbing. Witnesses allege that King was involved in sadistic abuse, as well as torture, and even filmed the murder of children and sold them as snuff. Oh. When I read that part in the book, I was like, oh my God. I was already in snuff hell with this Epstein garbage. So Webb highlights that King...
Everything's true.
It is.
Made me think of 8mm. That movie disturbed me
2 weeks
so
ago.
bad when I first saw it so many years ago.
It's
and
not comfortable.
All of it's like day to day.
Yeah, it's
normal.
It's just normal. And so Webb highlights that King was described as the partner to this man named Craig Spence, who this was a CIA-backed organization. And it was designed to compromise and control members of Congress. So they were just allowing this sex trafficking ring to happen because they wanted the intelligence. In 1990, state and federal grand juries officially labeled the abuse allegations as a carefully crafted hoax. So there's that. But when the Cold War ended and all the scandals like Iran-Contra and BCCI blew up, the network had to move into private corporations. And the mega group is a secret society, basically, of billionaires that serves as the bridge between private corporate power and the national security state. And it was founded by two architects, and that was Les Wexner, who is the retail mogul who owns Victoria's Secret, and L Brands, New York and Company, Lerner, and Charles Bronfman, the Seagram's heir. Full circle, the son of Sam Bronfman from part one. Originally, this was called the Study Group, and it consisted approximately of about 20 to 50 of the wealthiest, most influential Jewish American businessmen. Max Fisher was one. They claim Steven Spielberg was one. Estee Lauder is one. Ronald Lauder, who is the heir of Estee Lauder. But publicly, the group focused on Jewish identity and philanthropy, funding Israel. That was the whole thing. And so Webb argues that their ethno-philanthropy provided a cover, basically, for them to just engage in all sorts of shenanigans. The same way that like the foster cares, it's coming out that a lot of these foster cares are involved in these sex trafficking rings, which is very unsettling. And even like these different, these like different children's homes and stuff like that, it is incredibly unsettling. And so they were basically serving as a vehicle for these influence operations, and they were acting as a bridge between the politicians and the Israeli Mossad, and they were lobbying to the U.S. government so they could align with Middle Eastern policies. This is why now too people are like, okay, you need to make sure that you're not voting anybody who's Democrat who gets money from AIPAC. Majority of Republican president or politicians get money from AIPAC, and AIPAC is a Israeli-funded lobbyist group. So, at the end of the day, our politicians are being bought by Israel. That's why it's becoming such a major issue how we handle Netanyahu and how we handle the situation in Palestine. What I always explain when I talk about that the Palestine-Israeli conflict is like this isn't a thing that started October of 2024. Like this is something that has been going on for 80, 90 years almost. This is a much bigger beef. For a while I called it spiritual warfare. But I don't really think it has much to do with religion anymore on the Israeli side. I think they just want the power, and that's just what they want. I don't think it has anything to do with fucking Holy Land, and I don't think it has anything. I think at some point it did. I don't think it does anymore. And so, with that being said, people like Lex Wexner provided the corporate shells needed to handle the intelligence back and forth between Israel and the U.S. and, all of that other stuff. And also created the perfect front because he was headquartered in Ohio. He still lives in Ohio. And Webb details how Wexner helped facilitate the relocation of that Southern Air Transport I mentioned, the CIA's Iran-Contra airline. And Wexner had his own aviation company, which was called NetJets, where he employed pilots and used the same infrastructure of Blackmail and intelligence networks that we've been talking about this entire time. And this is allowed hot intelligence assets to be, housed in like these clean retail corporations. Oh, Victoria's Secrets. It's like, okay, well, you selling bras to women, yes, but your money goes somewhere else. And that's what we know about him. Now, Wexner is a massive donor to Jewish causes and to the Ohio Institute. He has his own medical center, which in recent news, Wexner is currently denying subpoenas to be questioned in a lawsuit against a doctor at his medical center, which I think is like insane.
You can deny a subpoena?
Huh?
You can just deny a subpoena?
Apparently.
Okay.
The team doctor apparently abused hundreds of male students at OSU decades ago. So anyway, Webb argues that Wexner's foundation served as a dual purpose, which is a hub for like cultivating like stronger leadership that intersected both U.S. and Israeli intelligence interests. So, I mean, she's basically saying he's a spy. She's basically saying he's a spy. So Khashoggi's social business overlapped as well with Maxwell. They all know each other. Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, was tasked by Israeli intelligence as well. He's Mossad, or former Mossad, because he's dead. And he was charged with bugging software to foreign governments. That was his thing. His thing was this software allowed agencies to like track black money that was flowing through all these different scammy banks. And it was called the Promise software. It was basically this software that was developed by this company, and it was designed to help the DOJ track these legal cases. Well, Israeli intelligence ended up inserting a backdoor into the software, which was basically feeding information straight to Israel. So they had access to all of this information about foreign governments, foreign banks, their intelligence age, like all of this information. So the U.S. and Israel could spy on their internal data in real time. They were just like, okay. So Maxwell was allegedly tasked with selling this bugged version of Promise globally to just different nations. And he used this his legitimate publishing company and tech connections to act as middleman. So Maxwell reportedly sold and bugged software back to the U.S. government, specifically to Sandia Laboratories and Los Alamos Laboratories. And this is the precursor to modern surveillance like Palantir. That's why people don't like Peter Thiel, because Peter Thiel is like creating this intelligence infrastructure where he's providing so much information to other people, and we don't have control over it. That's why people are terrified of the idea of Palantir. Another thing that we're learning is just like a bunch of tech people like the idea of being in control of the world. I think we're going from this, what I'm reading about, like these old ways to commit crime, to tech. That's why I like AI is a scam, big time scam. We'll talk about that, but it's a scam.
Data.
People keep investing in it when it just does not create a profit in a real way. And if AI takes control of everybody's job, who's going to buy your merchandise? We won't be able to afford it. It's not lucrative. So anyway, this is the first time the favorite bank went digital, and they could now do that through software the government used to run its department. So he used like this senator named John Tower to facilitate, Jesus Christ, these deals. So by the late 1980s, the old guard figures like Robert Maxwell and Adnan Khashoggi and blah, blah, blah were facing financial and political collapse. And Khashoggi later sold the super yacht that he had to Robert Maxwell, which he named Lady Ghislaine. That's also the boat that Maxwell died on. If you think he just died on his boat. I think most people now think he's murdered. John Tower left the Senate. Maxwell hired him as a consultant. Now, this gave Maxwell an agent of foreign intelligence and a direct plan into Pentagon and the White House. Maxwell, through the senator, convinced these top-tier weapons labs to install the software, and it effectively gave Israeli intelligence a window into the most guarded secrets in the U.S. military complex, industrial complex. Which is another reason why I think that Netanyahu was like, nigga, you can't do nothing to me. I know everything there is to know about your country. Tower Financial. It was basically a Ponzi scheme that was meant to make all of this seem legit. And they used the senator's name, Tower, in order to do it because it added legitimacy. If you got a politician behind it, if you use his name, whatever, it's going to sound legit. So they bought these accounts receivables from other countries at a discount. And then the company sold them high interest bonds to their investors, claiming that the money was being used for the business. But the money from the new investors were being used to pay off old investors. And so it was a Ponzi scheme. The whole thing was a scheme. That's what Bernie Madoff got in trouble with, where he would basically rob Peter to pay Paul. So let's say you invested in my company. And then for whatever reason, market instability, you want to pull out. You're like, nah, I'm going to pull out. I'm going to pay you the money that you are owed plus your profits. Mm-hmm. But if everybody pulls out, I can't pay everybody because I've been pocketing money. And I've also been manipulating the markets.
Sure.
So I can't pay everybody now. And that's when people start to find out like, oh, you just been robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like they're not actual profits. You're just using what money you have to pay people who decide to pull out. But if everybody pulls out, that's when it's like, well, the money should be there because they're profits. But if you've been spending it, you can't pay it back to them. And that's basically what they were doing. So they grew Towers Financial into this predatory bill collecting agency that they ended up getting about $460 million from thousands of smaller investors. And many of them were retirees, which is really sad. But the baton of managing these intelligence linked financial and blackmail networks needed fresh meat. After Maxwell, who do you got? Jeff Epstein. That's who you got. And Webb argues that Jeff Epstein was a prodigal son. He was groomed to move the operations along. That's kind of why he popped up out of nowhere with money. Everybody was like, how he just like get out of school and just like get all these crazy jobs and like get all these amazing contacts? Like how? And you know, again, Epstein used this company as a debt mining tool to see if to see into bank accounts of the elite. That was kind of the point. Epstein was never charged, though, with anything, which is one of the reasons why most people feel like, oh, he was an op. He was planted in there. Because why other dude go to jail and Epstein didn't? And they were both engaged in the same crime. You don't keep committing crimes and not going to jail without being involved in the government, in my opinion. I mean, he's Mossad. We've already seen his other IDs. He's Mossad. And Maxwell was also Mossad. And Ghislaine is also Mossad. They're all Israeli intelligence. That's why they engage in what they engage in. And that's why Epstein was never charged. And that's why he just got millions of dollars that came out of obscurity. And then Lex Wexner was like, oh, yeah, by the way, could you manage my multi-billion-dollar fortune kid that just came out of nowhere? Who does that? Epstein's ability to walk away from scandal unscathed was proof that he was protected by these networks, and the money stolen from Tower likely provided the initial seed money for blackmail and trafficking infrastructure that he built in the 90s, which is how we are here right now. And he is proof that the network will allow one man to go to prison to ensure that the successor can walk away with assets. And the favor bank needs to be intact. So Epstein wasn't a financial genius. He was just a designated asset. He was an asset. He still is. I think 45 is an asset too, but he's Russian asset. Because if you even think back to the 2016 election, there's so much in that paperwork. And the way he get in those, what was it, the Mueller report, the way he gets into trouble and nothing happens to him, that nigga's an asset. That's why they're not doing anything. And at this point, I think they're just waiting for him to die. They're like, the man's 80. He poops his pants. He's clearly suffering from some health issue. I think they know that he's going to die soon. That's why they put J.D. Vance there to be in his place. So, but as you can see, the constant passing of the baton, one fixer to another fixer to another fixer. You got Adnan Khashoggi, you got Robert Maxwell, and then you end with a person like Jeff Epstein, who did come out of nowhere and all of a sudden have a bunch of money and a bunch of contacts. And, makes sense to me. Just like they use drugs and guns for Iran-Contra, why now they would be using sex, a sex ring, a child sex ring. He's just freaky enough to be the one to do it. So, yeah. But I'll close with this. Chaos isn't fair. Because right now, this sucks. This type of chaos is very curated. And they didn't really want anarchy like the Joker does. There's something you want to balance when you want anarchy. They wanted a plan that was so horrifying for us because they're sadistic monsters and so large that nobody would believe that it was happening, even as it unfolded in plain sight. Because think about what's happening right now. Right now, we're all like, nah, this is almost too insane. It's like it's like you are warping our reality, the reality that we knew. You're not just making things bad for us logistically, physically, in real life. You're also affecting how we see what happens to us. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of it, it's warping our perception of what's happening to us. I think that's what makes what they're doing right now very, very dark. And I mean, obviously the Epstein files are a very important part of all of this, because obviously it's what is, I think, keeping a lot of these government machines afloat. And if that's the case, that means the selling of children through modeling agencies and shit like that. And then we're finding out that people are being possibly eaten and murdered, and people are having abortions, forcing girls to have abortions and killing and murdering babies. This shit is in the emails.
I don't know about any of this.
Yeah, you shouldn't. I mean, you could, but it's dark. If you go to, and I'll just say this too, if you want to look into the Epstein files, but you don't want to download the DOJ files, because who wants that in their computer?
I know people have been doing it. I'm not to do that.
But it's also just very difficult to go through. And so I say go to J World, because I think 2 or 3 college students created a dummy site.
Oh, I did hear about that. A fake
so
email,
you can see the photos, you can see the videos, you can see all of that stuff as if you're looking at his Gmail account, which I think is a better way for us to actually bust through them emails, because they are weird. My homeboy sends me random ones he run into that people post on Twitter, and it's just the shit. And there's 3 million more that they have not released. So I say all this to say that level of protection, his contact list is so vast. I have never heard of a person that knows and or is associated with absolutely everybody. And if he isn't, somebody he knows is too. It's just his separation between him, his degree of separation between him and just throw a dart at a celebrity.
Well, it's small at that level.
Well, it's small, but too, he was...
I mean, in the world of wealth.
He was trying to make the contact, so he wanted to be introduced to a lot of different people, because ultimately he wants information from you. He wants to put you in a compromising position. So to him, he can't stop.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's dead now, and if you believe that, I mean, I kind of do believe that, actually. I didn't at first, but I kind of do believe that he is dead. I just think he was murdered. I don't think he committed suicide. I think that's a joke. The same way that Ghislaine Maxwell's dad didn't just die on that boat. He was murdered. I find it very interesting. Sure, when you know a lot of people are going to die, right? The probability of people dying, but the probability of everyone dying of mysterious circumstances is what I have a problem with. One person I think he supposedly hung himself and then shot himself, or like shot himself and then hung. It was a lie. Who shoots themselves with a shotgun and then hang themselves? Like, no one. Like, it's not a thing. He was probably tied up and then somebody shot him. But instead, you spin this narrative and you make it seem like, oh, all of these people are just like committing suicide when they look like they were living lovely lives outside of child murder.
That he shot himself with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And then hung himself. Why is the second part necessary?
I mean, the shot with a shotgun, but they clearly didn't want it to seem like a murder, which I'm like, what you worried about? You can control every agency. All you got to do is just say that we calling this a murder.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Like, you don't have to lie to me, to be totally honest.
The watchers. Like,
yeah, but it's like I said at the end, you won't believe that it's happening as it's unfolding in your face. Like that is a thing that happened. And it's like, that seems and sounds so ridiculous.
It does.
It's so ridiculous. And even if you were trying to hide it from the public, he could have just been a person that was murdered, or he could have just been a person that committed suicide. He didn't have to be a person that was both. Because that's physically impossible. So anyway, I'm 98% sure this episode doesn't make any sense because I'm high, and I hate when this happens.
So you keep saying that. I thought you were joking at first, but I'm looking.
No, I'm very high, and even as I was reading this, I was like, I don't even know what I'm reading anymore. I mean, I try to keep it pretty elementary school over here.
What you just did?
Yeah, because this isn't like college level. This is like.
I went to college.
First of all,
how many years ago was that?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But this is also what I love about being on having a show where like perfection doesn't matter. Because all I swear to drunk, I'm not God. There have been episodes where I've been so wasted through episode, and then
this is hard for me because I work in the complete opposite.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Where I had to edit podcasts and any cough or any like.
And for me, because I posted as is, I will sometimes like not. I will listen to this tomorrow and I'll be like, okay. Or I'll be like, oh no. Okay. Anyway, worst case scenario, I'll record over your track as no. What I'm saying is I'll record my vocals again, but just have your track. so it sounds like you here.
I feel like you should maybe not do that.
That'll be so creepy. It'll be just you just randomly like,
I don't know.
I mean,
just every once in a while.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So, okay, we gotta go. Okay, it's 8:00. Thanks, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
This works out.
That was the most unenthusiastic thing.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.
I'm so messed up.